How will it be reported by this bank? It says newspaper, it says 10 crores makes a loss. Okay. Do companies make losses? Is it normal to make loss? No. Businesses sometimes make loss, sometimes make profit. But tell me how it will be reflected in the balance sheet. In the balance sheet, it will be reflected as loss, gain, to the effect of something. It is called balance in profit loss account.
Or it can be other way around. We can make, sometimes we have made more payments than the receipts. It can be.
Which payments and receipts? It has made a loss. So payment receipt can't.
I said maybe because of excess payments being made by the bank and not the money which comes in.
Let's leave the bank. Let's leave a bank. I'll give you a company. Okay. What do you have on company? Balance sheet. You have equity capital, paid up capital, that is. Then you have long-term loans. Then you have short-term loans. Anything else? Then you have what? Bills payable. Okay? The liability side. On this side, you have fixed assets, that is land, buildings, machinery. Then you have current assets, that is basically raw material, goods in process. Then you have finished goods. Then you have receivables. Then you have cash back. Okay. Now let's say we put some figures here. Let's say this is 500 crores and all this is about 100 crores. And therefore we need 600 crores. And out of the 600 crores, let's say 300 crores is paid up capital, 200 crores or 250 crores is this, and that will be 550, and all this put together. The balance sheet is okay? Now let's say this company is a manufacturing company. This company makes a loss of 10 crores. What will happen? This is not a bank, this is a manufacturing. What will happen is that
liability side we will have a.
This will continue as it is because of the it's just manufacturing. On this side, it will become 10 crores. Yeah. Okay. This also has to change, otherwise it doesn't balance. Isn't it? So how this changes normally is that your cash and bank balance goes down here, and therefore this becomes should we wind up the bank company? Should we cut? This is accumulated loss. This is loss, accumulated loss. Continues. This becomes 90, still continues, becomes 190, still continues, becomes 290, with negative 10, still continues. The shareholders may like it, may not like it, that's a different issue. The shareholders cannot say, wind it up. You don't wind it up. What happens if this loss becomes, say, 400?
It's more than your paid up capital.
Yeah. So this is called loss of 400. Your net worth wind up. So what do you do now?
You have to wind up.
Right?
Shall I talk to somebody?
But why wind it up?
Because it is.
Somebody else can take out, or you can continue
If
yourself.
somebody else is going to take it, you are the best person, you run it.
I mean, it is exceeding our paid up capital, the equity base.
Who's asking? Do you know who can wind up the company? Who can force the company to be wound up?
The people who have taken the loans and
These people can.
Debenture
Or
This
holders,
is called voluntary thing. Or these
debenture
people,
holders or preference.
these people,
Yeah.
the people who are creditors can come and say, please
return our money.
return our money. So you wind up. So these people can go and ask for winding up. Okay. But if this loan is due in, let us say, 2020, they generally cannot go. What we say is an unpaid creditor can go to the court of law for winding up. They are not unpaid creditors because it's due in 2020. There is one theory which says that these people, there is a negative net worth, so the owner will run away. But it's not so easy. That KMB model, no?
What is that KM model?
Credit risk, the basic premise in KMB model is that if the net worth is negative, the owners, there is no stake of the owners and it is already gone off. So they won't pay the loan.
Because they may not run the company in a way which will be workable.
Yeah, I mean there is no, that's the
Interest
basic
involved.
premise in that.
There is no interest involved
Yeah,
in
there is no interest involved in that. But then, what I am trying to say is, let us say this loss this year is 400 crores. Last year it was 100 crores, you run the company. This year another 100 crores is added, you don't throw away the company because you have a name, a brand, you have land building machinery, your products are selling, maybe it's a bad downturn like the current situation.
So suppose it should be maybe 2009, then they can go. Instead of 2020, if it is 2009, say April 2009.
They are unpaid. Then it won't be a long-term loan. The money is due, it has to be paid.
And you think that it is possible to restructure and sell some part of the asset and then...
Yeah, it's not restructuring. But if the shareholder, let's say I am the only shareholder, it's my money, I can run this company. Okay? Even if it is negative, because this is long-term. I can definitely run this company if the loss is up to, say, 250 or 275. Because there is still some net worth there.
But there should be some limit. I mean, some threshold limit should be there.
Where should it be?
I mean, if the company is into losses and
Who will set the
losses.
threshold limit?
I mean, I'm just asking a question. I mean, there should be some limit.
That's what I'm saying. Why should there be? Who will set the limit? First of all, the
Because we are
question
just analyzing the long-term loans. I mean, they are being paid in the
what I'm
future.
trying to say is this. As long as this guy wants to run the company, first learning I want you to remember is that even with a huge loss, the company will run, hoping that next year good tidings will come and we'll recoup. In business, companies run even with a loss on their balance sheet. This is what I want you to understand. Second, if the substantial portion comes from long-term loans, they are not unpaid creditors and they cannot ask for money back. These two we will use in the banking. As long as you have long-term funds more than the loss, you can continue the enterprise hoping that in the subsequent period of making the balance sheet, things will improve and there will be profit that will make. Please remember, the profit is not the same as net cash flow. It is not the same as operating profit or operating cash flow. You should know the difference, because you have what is called depreciation and all that kind of thing. So, like for example, infrastructure companies, first 5 years, 10 years, they're all loss making. Amazon was loss making when its share price was very high. They carry loss here. Only when these people want their money back, that's why if you see Alitalia, Delta Airlines, then KLM, I think.
Or even General Motors and all.
General Motors and all. It is the creditors, unpaid creditors who are creating problems. And Chapter 11 bankruptcy, it gets a protection because once it files for Chapter 11, these guys cannot come and say pay me. First of all, these guys can short-term loans. That's why taking short-term loans becomes very, very dicey if your organization, if your enterprise is not making money.
Can we
Yeah.
have implications in the...
No, the implication is same.
No, but if you have CASA.
CASA, yes.
So now that point I'm coming back to.
Yeah. If you have CASA, which is
Short-term debt.
short-term, CASA is short-term debt, it's payable on demand, and therefore, between this and this, there is a qualitative difference. Number one. And number two, if the CASA people feel that this thing is very large, then there will be a run on the bank. Yeah.
And that can precipitate the
Yeah,
company's
but before
bank.
we come to CASA, what I wanted, that's what I've written in the notes. Why do we need capital? Why capital at all? Okay, you want to set up ROC says that you should have 7 shares of LLC. 7 shares minimum to be issued, so 700 rupees to 70 rupees you should say. Why have more? Here he needs more because if he doesn't have enough, he won't get this, he can't survive.
Safety norms are there.
Safety of whom?
Financial system.
Kiska says.
Right.
No, this is the manufacturing.
Here the
Banking is one of the thousands of businesses you can do. But the business that you do here, take a manufacturing concern, he will on his own have enough capital because then he won't get loans. It's very obvious because if you don't have capital, these guys will not give loans. But you come to the banking system, banks, these guys are not going to check out what's your capital. Did you check out? I have lots of FDs. Did I check out? No, I don't. You don't. None of the depositors check out. And as I said, till 1990 in India, I have official statistics about bank capital. You don't need. Because either there is faith or there is no faith. So nobody wants to see here. Here, he won't get loans. And he also knows that if he takes short-term loans, in business there is always up and down. Either it's cyclical, so there is up and down. Either it is dependent on agriculture, so there is up and down. Even if it is not, it depends on the whims and fancies of people, there is up and down. This year it is too much up and down, but up and down of that. So they will get on their own, or these fellows will not give loan unless they have enough capital. In this case, the difference is there. That is first thing. Second, the more capital you have, the more time you get to adjust or recoup your losses. This is what I want you to understand. If it was 30, your margin is only so little. If the entire thing was equity, there's no issue. Carry on your with losses. So, I called it buying time there. There will be up and down, there will be losses, but you don't have to wind up the moment there is a small loss or a large loss, depending on, if you have enough capital, you get time to recoup. It is not like, the difference, sports, league and knockout. In league, you keep playing till then there's a table according to which you do. In knockout, you lose one, you're out. So here, just because you made a loss, you don't wind up the company. You get time to recoup. And larger the capital, larger is the time to recoup. Okay? In banking, also, larger the capital, larger the time you get to recoup your shocks. The shocks come from this or this. Depositor may be worried, may not be worried. He should be worried, but the bank itself there may be a problem. Because somewhere, some fellow will see that there is a negative net worth, it creates problems, then we run off the bank.
It's like the information will flow to the next level, and then that's where when you're listing the market, actually you're in bigger trouble than when you're not listing the market.
Absolutely. That is also called market discipline. In Basel II, we use market discipline. Should set them right. I don't agree with it, but that's the. So, why capital is required? Capital is required to absorb the shock received because you make losses, which is loosely written as to absorb shock losses. Okay? Or, in technical terms, if you want to, capital allows you to carry losses on your balance sheet. That's what I wanted to convey. Indian Bank carries something like 5,000 crores loss on its balance sheet for 3-4 years till it made profit and recouped. Or one way of doing it is, suppose you make loss, you ask the owners to give more capital. Then what happens? Suppose you have made loss. You immediately ask the owners to bring in capital and make it 500. This is how it works. Yeah, you read a lot, but this is how it works.
They issue more shares in the market and.
Well,
There could be various ways to do that.
various ways. Recapitalization of banks is one way. Like Tata wants, rights issue is one. Normally you don't go to the market because market who will invest? Nobody. खराब company में कोई invest करता है?
And when the market is in downturn, not a good idea to anyway go to the market.
Yeah, like I remember when we were coming, we said SpiceJet is $20 or something, let's buy. We should have bought it, come on. Unitech 24 rupees or something like that. Who bought? Those who bought, of course, are making money. But that's another issue. The issue is there will be losses sometime or the other, and this allows you to carry a loss on your balance sheet. Similarly, you can carry a loss on your balance sheet. But the difference between this and this is their negative net worth is tolerated easily. Here, negative net worth may not be tolerated. I'll change this balance sheet now a little bit. Just like this long-term loan, why not have long-term loan here also? Remember, if there is a long-term loan, you get time. Because 2020, the creditors cannot come to us. Similarly, let's say we have long-term loans or bonds. Let's say 10 years maturity. We have needed how much cost?
15 more. No. Minus.
Okay. Then what happens is, up to 10 loss, it's fine. If it becomes 12, you have got negative net worth, but deposits are not eroded. Because depositors will get first, then the bond holders will get. They are called subordinated bonds.
But isn't time deposit like a long-term debt?
But then premature repayment in Reserve Bank, in India, RBI has said that whoever wants premature repayment, you cannot deny it.
To that extent, they are.
That's another area of discussion or policy that is there. But recently, if you remember last year, I don't know, I have my retirement funds. They should have 500-day deposit at quite high rates, 9.5, 10 and all that. And one of the clauses is that there is no premature repayment. We are all okay with that, but some guy went to Ombudsman and Reserve Bank has passed a regulation or judgment saying that there should be. You cannot deny premature repayment.
You can cut some penalty.
In India. Yeah, some penalty, some interest loss, something like that, but you cannot say no. Otherwise also, term deposits are 1 year, 2 years, etc. So, there you can deny them, but you can't deny CASA.
That's on demand.
And CASA, even if it is 20-25%, that's 100%. So, why I am saying brought this up is, A, capital gives you time to recoup losses or shock.
So you cannot redeem that subordinate bond.
Yeah, yes sir. Really. So, CASA is different. Even if you have a negative net worth, remember till I introduced this, negative net worth means deposit's value is eroded. So depositors get worried. But till 20 depositors are not worried. Till loss of this plus this, depositors are not worried. Yes, it's a dangerous situation. But these guys have 10 years, 2019 says they cannot ask, they cannot do a damn over this. So if you look at the need for some amount of money to be invested in the business, which will give you time to recoup normal losses or normal shocks, not abnormal shocks, normal shocks.
Because of seasonality and because
Whatever seasonality, something goes wrong, or you have a bad year, or you have, what should I say, finance lots of shipping trawlers, and there's the tsunami and all this, shipping trawlers go bad, what can you do? You will have to write off.
Or car loans, ICICI.
कार लोन, ICICI, ये ना हजार चीजें होते हैं. ये तो ups and downs तो होते ही रहते हैं. You have to write off a lot. It could happen that you have a very bad year and it could go. But this and this will give you. This is tier 1, this is tier 2. We have named it tier 1 and tier 2. Now the issue is how much capital. One is what is the use of capital, why capital. Now, how much? Here it is well defined. Beyond a certain level, you don't get loans at all. Bankers, beyond 30, 70, he won't give you loans unless there are special circumstances, which happens in infrastructure finance. He won't give you loans. So there is no question at all. But how much of capital? So what had happened, I guess, I'm not privy to it, but I guess, is that they decided that the problem with loss, where do we get the losses from? There are two areas from which you get loss, or how loss results in lower, why lower? Negative net interest income. You go it up on interest income itself. That is likely to happen now because banks
high interest rate.
And Chidambaram says, not Chidambaram, who has said reduce the interest rate, everything reducing interest. Because the chairman must be feeling, 2 saal aur hai, theek hai, kya farak padega. That is one. The second one is, we call it depreciation of assets. That is, the value of your balance sheet is fixed. Let's take only the credit risk, that is, let's say that these are okay. The loans, NPA we call it, that is, the loans go bad. That's a major risk for banks. And if this is a major risk, as I said, net interest income going negative is very rare. Because you're borrowing at certain rate and you're lending at certain rate. The difference is there. If you are so bad a bank that it has gone to negative, then there are some other things that are going to be done, structural changes that are to be done. But if the loans that you have got basic thing, when you draw the balance sheet, you are supposed to put a figure here which should be the realizable value of the loans made on. If I have given 100 loans of 10 lakhs each, okay, that is how much? 1 million? So 1 million, 10 lakhs plus 100 is, lakhs is 5 plus 100, 7, 1 crore.
1 crore. 7 zeros.
Yeah, 7 zeros, so 1 crore. So 1 crore I have given as loan. If half of them go bankrupt, or I have given housing loan, let's say, and go to India. There's an earthquake and the whole thing goes off. Then what do I do? If I show a value of 100 into 10 lakhs, no? That is 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 crores.
10 lakhs, okay. I got 1 lakh each.
10 lakhs. So it is
10 crores.
10 crores. If I show the value of my loan given as 10 crores, it is wrong. Isn't it? Do I have loans which will bring in 10 crores to me
No,
subsequently?
you have to adjust to that figure as per the NCA.
Yeah. So this will become, let's say half of the houses go back, this will become 5
5
crores.
crores.
Then how is this accounted for? Actually it is accounted for, let's not do this. Again, 4 will be 5. Let's say 4 crores go back, 40% of the houses go back, so you have 6 crores left here. 4 crores is shown as loss. It will come in the P&L account. And all other things are amounting to 0, these 4 crores will come as a loss here. That is, I will tell you again, this is the asset value. This is called book value. When you draw the balance sheet, we follow a system called book value or market value, in this case realizable value, whichever is lower. We have decided that 4 crores we cannot realize. So what we cannot realize, we debit a loss account and credit the asset account. That's the entry that is passed. So the asset books in my book, in my books of account, the loans will show only 6 crores. The other 4 crores is accounted as loss, and the loss will come here as reduction in the net worth. This is called depreciation of assets. You depreciate the loan assets by 4 crores. Similarly, here also you see the market value, but that we'll address later. Because there is going to be a default of 4 crores, or there is already a default of 4 crores, I cannot continue to show this. This is how it affects the balance sheet. Okay. So if we address credit risk only, then your capital should have something to do with your risky assets. Your capital should be linked to the loans and advances you have made, which are, as of now, at this point, risky. Let you forget this. These two are fixed income, and we presume that there is no credit risk.
The non-SLR may be
We will presume for the moment.
Okay, we are assuming for the time.
We are assuming that these are only SLR funds. But the fact remains that the capital should be a function of your assets which are subjected to credit risk. Okay? And the Basel norm that came first was that you must have 8%, at least 8%. How that 8 has come, I don't know. Jaideep did a lot of research, we still not found out how that 8 has come.
Jaideep Mitra. There might be some research papers or something, I guess, somewhere. I guess that report which is there, in the end there might be some references.
What distribution is it called? It's not, one is normal. B से क्या distribution?
Beta.
Bernoulli.
Bernoulli.
It is, these are Bernoulli distribution. So from Bernoulli to Basel, that was what he wanted to write a paper, but we couldn't find out. Anyway, there has to be this.
No, I guess the references of that report may have some clues to the where it came from.
Yeah, we'll have to pick it up.
That'll be itself in a separate research issue.
No, if If there is a way, somebody has calculated 8. I mean, you can't do much research on that, except that you question his assumption.
That's why you have to look at the paper,
Yeah.
on what basis you arrive at
Yeah.
8, and then if you violate, is it sensitive to that?
Yeah, that's what. But funniest part, what I would like you to appreciate is what are the limits to that 0 or 100? Isn't it? Look at it from a research point of view or a discussion point of view. It can't be less than 0. It can't be, should you have more than 100? It doesn't make sense. You can have, it doesn't make sense. But if you have 0, there is no capital, it doesn't make sense. If you have 100, then you can't do business. Because capital is the most expensive source of funds for any organization and definitely for banks. So it has to be something they have decided 8. Then they decided, so Basel I said that how to find this risky asset. The simplest thing that, how did this come? In the US, some proprietary research was done. Some of these banks had already decided that it should be like this. They were keeping 8% for their internal, for their own purposes, for monitoring, etc. They were keeping 8% of the loan. You extend it. Wherever there is credit risk, you have to keep 8%. If there is no credit risk, you have to keep. If there is no credit risk, there is no problem at all. It won't hurt us, so there is no need for capital. I mean, if you don't have capital also, you can run. Therefore, what they did was, they changed this to risk-weighted assets. What it means is, you write down all your assets. You decide how risky they are.
Needs to give grant.
Is it
Not
bank decides?
So,
Let's decide, the bank decides. Let's say I am the chairman, we have to decide. So we will decide how risky they are. How much are we likely to lose in this? Are they risky? Are they not risky? Let me give you a, suppose I have given loan to Government of India. Is it risky?
that's risky. It's not.
It is not at all risky by definition. So it can be 0% if it is sovereign or sovereign guaranteed. If Government of India is guaranteed, it is 0 risk. So what we do is, we multiply this. We don't have to keep, this is the dollar value. Asset class, asset 1, 2, 3, 4. If this is government, so whatever amount you give, you don't consider it risk.
But if you have a government which is not very, like India is still
By
strong.
definition in finance, the sovereign is riskless.
No, because they have all kinds of countries like, Africa somewhere.
Then you have a problem. Then that is not our government, no. They, like for example, Bihar government guaranteed loans, bonds issued by say Bihar State Electricity Board. They are not considered riskless.
Like say, main example, in the US I think there are a lot of municipalities that have defaulted.
Yeah.
So will that will not be sovereign, I guess?
That's not sovereign. Sovereign is the
Central.
US government, federal government. Treasury. US Treasury, UK Treasury, Indian Government of India bonds, etc. The other one is 100%. If we have loaned to, say, any company, manufacturing company, it is 100%. You are exposed to credit risk. 0% only means that you are not exposed to credit risk. 100% does not mean you are going to lose 100%. 100% means the entire amount is exposed to credit risk.
So if we have again agriculture sector for prime lending again, we will take 100%.
The entire amount is exposed to it. You may lose, you may not lose. So first when they started with 0 and 100. Now as he said, who decides? What would you decide if you were a bank owner? I would decide all at 0%.
I don't need any capital.
I don't need any capital. And therefore, the bank owners cannot decide. Regulation is always external, so the Reserve Bank decides. That is first thing. Yeah. The first thing is risk weight. RBI decides is the most logical answer. We have come to that side. Okay? And therefore, we will keep not less than 8% of the risk-weighted assets. Each asset, now we will see this asset also. This is riskless. This is risky. Okay, this is also risky.
Yeah.
So, you will weight this with 100, you will weight this with 100, you will weight this with 100. This is not risky. This is not risky. You classify your assets. You give weights of 0 to 100.
I guess that's why, in a way, now you can have a logical answer to why capital data was not required. If you have more or less, all the bank loans, more or less, the regulator decides that where will you give your loans. Effectively, there is no need for the capital concept.
Yeah, sort of. Because majority of them were either here, I mean, most of it was here.
Or priority sector.
Or priority sector. It didn't make much difference at that time. But as and when, I mean, as you left more and more risk to the market,
You
it
need it.
will become less. It's that also. So then, if this is okay, next one. Can we have something in between? So, Reserve Bank of India decided that we'll have 0, 50 and 100.
Three levels they have decided.
They had decided, I mean, I'm telling you, taking you through history. You had some at 0, some at 50, some at 100. Then that Reserve Bank decided.
And it keeps changing.
It can change. It can change.
But it is not more kind of a...
No, this, I'm just seeing the logical part of that, then I'll give you the problems with class one. Logically, should it be only 0 or 100?
Or it should be in between.
Yeah. So, if Reserve Bank decides that certain sector, like at one time, Reserve Bank had decided, or all of us felt that housing loan to individuals
It's safe.
is safe. In fact, that was the question they asked me when I joined MPI. So I had argued, yes. The professor who had come as an expert, who was my old professor, he said no. Then I had given lots of reasons. He said no. I said no, I don't agree with you. But you need to be careful that you are sending it to one house. The first house that an Indian buys, it is safe. The second house is speculation. It may not. But it's very difficult, nobody bothers now.
But it's not, I mean, information the bank has, isn't it? Whenever you take any second loan, bank will ask you whether you have taken any other loans.
Yeah, but you can bluff.
No, but the thing is, that is a kind of a...
Now, that civil and all exposure, kitna liya, kya liya, there is...
You're supposed to provide all that information. If you don't provide, then...
Yeah. But also there is a small clause, if I made any this thing, I will pay the penalty, etc. A lot of it is on case.
Which means the information sharing with the bank is not complete.
It is not complete, it is not going to be complete for quite a few years.
No, in the sense, that's where the kind of if you have computerization and then you
Yeah.
can cross-check. I mean, that a bit of it that in credit card they share already the data.
Yeah. But credit card dues they share. Now what we need to share is how much you have borrowed from which bank. It's coming through.
Because it's information useful to all of them. And
Amit Kapoor had a problem. He applied for a loan, he was not given. And he asked him why. He said, no, on this site, Standard Chartered has listed saying that you owe them money. But which he had paid. So he fought with them, they went and they had to apologize and tell that person that they are not updated the record. Yeah?
Yeah, I said in many banks, this is what happened. One person has taken loan from several banks. I mean, they don't cross-check.
I mean, in business, you should be ready for being cheated. So, is it? I mean, like, if a student gets a chance to see the, but if he's sitting next to the topper and he gets a chance to see, he'll see. Why do you presume he will not?
Or the same term paper can be used for different courses, isn't it?
But there should be some but there should be some cross and this is what happens with this we
मैडम ऐसा है आप जरा ध्यान से सुनिए they say that all is fair in love and war add business to that because there is no if a person gets a chance he will take you for a ride a company which does not do this its business ethics are good and these are the companies which will stay for ages. This conservatism, good business ethics, these are all long-term, लंबे रेस की घोड़ा बोलते हैं ना. Short, skimming the market, short-term, sprinting, everybody does.
Today was there, Tata's are 11th in the global list of reputation
11th,
in the world. I mean, they are very small compared to General Motors and all. General Motors are nowhere to be seen in that list.
I believe
Google even is lower than Tata's.
Yeah, is lower than Tata. I believe Reliance Group offered to Bombay municipality or whoever, mayor or something, we will make the roads, we will do this, we will do that. They said no. Because nobody will believe that you have not taken a bribe for doing all this. But if Tatas were to do it, they'll do it. And Tatas have earned it over
100
2
years.
decades.
Not 2 years, 100 years.
100 years.
The Tata Steel starts from that.
Yeah. No, Tata Steel, Jamshedpur, in fact, family planning, they did along, it's still going on. They are very quietly, they are doing.
Airlines and
And it's ethical. Of course, they had problems with Tata Finance and things like that. There have been problems, but they take it till that. Like, for example, Infosys and Wipro. The difference is that Wipro in 2002 when they had a crisis, now I don't know, but in 2002 they fired nobody. Whereas Infosys fired because I think they said that we can bear the losses. What will these people do? They have built this organization, let them be there. Of course, those who are incompetent, normal firing was taking place, but industry-related firing was not. That is the difference between Azim Premji and Infosys. Azim Premji even now has those soap and thing companies. Even if you go to Wipro, they are sold there, even though they are not
software, money-making software.
They are not high-fi. That is ethics. That goes a long way. बदमाश नहीं है ये. Now the next question is between 0 and 100 RBI for whatever they want. I have given you one reason. Say it can. Can it go beyond 100? That is the more interesting. Can the risk weight go beyond 100? Because 100 seems to be the limit. The entire amount is risky. The entire amount is exposed to risk. Can you make it 150?
I think whenever you go to a lot of the irresponsible investments, it should be even 100.
No. RBI has used this when it felt that the sector is dangerous. And incidentally, it has used in housing also.
No, yeah.
housing or
Now, earlier also, it made it 125 or something, then made it 150.
But actually,
even agriculture sector also, sir?
No.
I mean, the priority sector lending and
Making
all
it more than 100 makes banks move away from that sector, that's all. It discourages banks taking exposure in this sector. RBI will never discourage a bank from going to agriculture sector. Because you have to provide more capital, banks will reduce their exposure. So when RBI felt that there is asset bubble that is there in the real estate, long back they raised it to 150. That is the answer for the question that I'll ask you subsequently. Why do banks keep 12 to 15% capital adequacy when 9 is required? Because suddenly a bank will say, the Reserve Bank says, this check is 150, and you have it. You can't go to the equity market. That is one of them.
100% basically means you can.
I mean, that is why you need some extra cash over there.
Yeah, we'll discuss that.
But flip side, I mean, I don't know, it's looking 100% basically means you need to keep 9%, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can take a lot more risk, and suppose I take extra exposure in equity.
Yeah, you take it. So that is also comes under risk. Credit risk.
Credit risk.
Yeah.
And suppose I double it from 5% to 10%.
I think equity risk is never. Because equity is not repaid back. Default means of that. You can take non-SLR. You can give it to bad companies.
How is equity treated? Equity is separate treatment.
I'll have to check out. I think equity is not included in credit risk. It comes under market.
Okay, even if it's not equity, let's take the another usual take loan and advances. I can be very irresponsible, very risky, and then I have to just keep 9% of it, isn't it? Which means if I am kind of a very high risk.
Will I give you my favorite quotation? Bhagavad apparently says this, that for a well-run bank, okay, if you are giving it to responsible borrowers, if you have taken care of SLR, non-SLR, done your thing, you are careful with your assets, a well-run bank does not need any capital. You do not need any capital for a well-run bank. But if it is a badly run bank, no amount of capital will save. Because, as he said, it is an irresponsible bank and it gives 100 crores or 10 crores, whatever loan, and entire thing is given to Dawood Ibrahim.
I mean, this could be the subprime crisis also. I mean, I can give it to.
Subprime is very much that.
I can.
Badly run. It's a bad decision. I mean, you can't give it to.
No, it's a bad decision, but the thing is that the rules doesn't kind of have any problem with that. I'm within the rules,
Yeah.
and still
Rules cannot
officially I'm.
Rules cannot prevent you from being irresponsible. Only thing that can prevent you is that regular inspections and all. Because if you get caught, then the chairman is removed, and the chairman comes back saying that.
No, I'm not even kind of violating any rules. I'm following all the rules. And still.
No. What happens in inspection when Reserve Bank is to inspect? This is given. There is nothing to do with. This is also given. There is nothing to do with. This portion, a team is to sit and see all advances and arrive at an independent decision. What is the value? Realizable value of this advances. From the realizable value of this advances, we cast the balance sheet and find the net worth. Net worth would be all this minus this.
No, I understand. What I'm saying is, like this year is bad year, but last 5 years, I could have done a lot of the bad loans.
No, but if I am inspecting every year, you get caught in.
No, the thing is, bad loan basically becomes bad loan when there's a downturn. Otherwise, it was a very nice thing.
No, if you give irresponsibly a loan, there are certain ways of finding out that this is not what.
Let me not call it irresponsible. Let me call it more risk-taking.
Risk-taking, yeah.
I took extra risk, which means my returns will be higher, but at the same time, there's a possibility of downturn.
When you say extra risk, you are given loans to people who are risky. Dawood Ibrahim, for example.
That's an extreme, but there could be a lot more. Like subprime is one example where returns are very high, and I just.
Yeah. So when the RBI regulation is different from Bank of England or Fed. RBI is perhaps the first reserve bank, the first central bank to go and sit on judgment about the quality of loans.
But again, the subjectivity is involved there. People who go from this into
there are certain formulas. I mean, you calculate net worth of the company, you recast this thing and check out. The exercise which a bank has to do while giving a loan, it's called loan appraisal or credit appraisal. That credit appraisal is done post facto by a banker, by Reserve Bank people, and then we have our own hierarchy to satisfy. So a big team decides that these loans are not worth it, or these loans there is a problem, and therefore I will reduce the value of this loan down.
No, the thing is, when it is happening, when you're doing it, checking it, it's post facto. And the thing is, at that time, things may not be seeming bad.
Well, if at that time it didn't seem bad, it doesn't seem bad. At the time of giving loan also it doesn't seem bad. That is not irresponsible or risk-taking.
No, what I'm trying to get at is...
You take calculated risk. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to distinguish maybe in ICICI vis-a-vis a Canara Bank or something.
No.
ICICI will go aggressively to kind of a push loan to somebody and look at kind of a, maybe they have a little more extra money they spend in the collecting, like say venture capital. And banks are not doing any venture capital, but something like that I'm trying to say. You are saying even if 2% or 10% of this succeed, I made my money, even if 90% fails.
Banks don't not supposed to do that.
No. I'm just trying to, I'm not...
Let's take a simple thing like ICICI pushing car loan. Somewhere it had to get hit, it has got hit. But we say that that is a calculated risk. And if I were to do an inspection of ICICI Bank, I would see this car loan. Now, when a car loan is given, certain documents are taken. So, we will presume that all those documents are taken. So, if there is a problem, they will have repossession and they can sell, etc. Then there is another next step catastrophe that the market collapses. Isn't it? Like we repossess all the houses or all the cars. You can't sell it because there are no buyers. So that also is there. So there should be a certain margin. So qualitatively, the RBI inspectors are supposed to take on judgment and come to a conclusion. If they feel, that's why we have, then they also do sector exposure. If ICICI has given loan only to loan cars, then RBI can say, see, sector exposure zyada is ready. Even though there is no law, RBI holds the, or has said that we retain the authority to advise. So, RBI has been seeing that there is no concentration in one sector. RBI has been doing their appraisal and saying that there is a problem in this. Then what is called monitoring has to be done by these people. So when we go there, we check it out. I'm not saying it has been successful in this. It has not been able to prevent many of these issues.
So subjectivity is involved in people who are going from the... So that, to that extent...
State Bank and Bank of Madras, तो आप जानते नहीं हैं, but Indian Bank ले लीजिए, most of it was loans given to, say, companies floated by different parties or that's wrong. But then it built up. But then it was inspected by many RBI officers. Then again there is a model hazard because I will sign something and that loan goes bad. I will say I'm sorry, I made a mistake. That's all.
That's why I'm saying that somewhere that.
Yeah. That's much of it.
And also to some extent the banks can play it and possibly become more profitable in this process.
Well, if it goes bad, then you have higher the venture, higher the risk, higher the return. But then.
That's why you need to have a...
means that negative return will also be high. That risk is there. It
that
cannot be avoided because you go back to the present financial crisis, banking crisis. What is the problem? You had Basel. You had your blessed 8% of the risk-weighted assets. It didn't prevent the crisis. Because what you said is very true, that if the quality of the assets is bad, then what do you do?
That is another thing I was thinking, something which is... that what is the bank's basic function? That's a basic question was coming to my mind. Somewhere it was to take risk, isn't it? Financial intermediation is...
Let's start with this. That is what economists call financial intermediation between savers and investors.
That's one.
Investors meaning people who put up projects and businesses and things like that. That's the basic thing. That's how
where this gets kind of too much obsession with security, I think.
No, it could be, but if you are not obsessed with security, then stability becomes an issue. And if stability is an issue of the bank, or profitability of the bank, profitability of the bank is an issue, then stability of the financial system is an issue. Because in old economics, if you see the old economics, that's the way it was taught to us and all that. Financial intermediation was not told to us as one of the functions. We were told that it is the function. But
no, I'm like looking at the more basic level in the sense, bank. Let me just take a very simple example. A farmer will get a crop after 1 year. There's a lot of risk involved. A money lender find it profitable to make money in that. A bank with kind of a that guy charges 32% he's paying. Bank, even makes it available at 16%, which is twice what the market rate is. And still somewhere that scale economies get lost in the banking system.
You see the money lender has two things which banks cannot do. One is he charges usually a rate for which means that the depreciation of assets, the loss he makes on default is covered by his interest. That is one. He loses on the balance sheet value, but he gains on the interest, whatever he gets. And in most cases, he takes the interest and gives the rest of it. Uploaded the interest, that is the second. Second, he can use strong-arm tactics, which banks cannot.
Which some banks use and have finding difficult to.
That's the issue. Otherwise, now we are coming down to the money lender is a good guy, as long as he is within limits.
No, I mean, what I see sometimes is that one of the reasons these defaults are so high is that the interest rates are very high. Somewhere there is a kind of a role for financial institutions to make it affordable.
In the rural sector, the reason for defaults could be that, seasonal crop failure, famine, etc. But in many cases, it is just that they have been told you don't have to pay.
No, that is separate. That is the thing is that is I don't know, somehow that I don't buy that argument, because that bank wherever the bank reaches, it's a very small proportion of the total farming community.
Not necessarily,
I mean, if you look at
the word spread, no.
I think banks give about 16% of total requirement of the agriculture sector. 84% is.
See, that's what Pujari's thing was. You write off one Tata, you can feed so many of these people.
No, the issue is somewhere possibly government has to do it from the budget rather than the banks.
What they did last time, they wrote off the loans. Okay, we don't like writing off loans. That's a different issue. But they said that all agricultural loans banks will write off, and whatever they have written off, government will give. That's fine with me as a
At
bank.
least lower denominations ones, which are
whatever.
that.
Right? आप कहते हैं इनको पैसे जो she owes me money, I should not take money from her, then you give me the money.
But don't you think that this is because of some political pressures also? I've seen in Punjab, I mean, lots of this loans have been written off because
economics and politics cannot be separated. Please remember that.
I mean, they have made their mind. ये तो हो ही
I had long back asked
they
one
don't pay
question,
no.
why is it that the king, if you recall the stories that you have read when you were small, what did the kings do? Shekhasuri built a road. उसको कोई और धंधा वंदा नहीं था क्या? He built a road. सराय बनाए थे इधर उधर at different places. You know what are सराय? हाँ, पेड़ पौधे लगाए थे, कुएं खुदाया था. ये क्या राजा का काम होता है? I mean, as a kid I used to ask, ये राजा का काम क्या है? ऐश करना, जंग करना, acquiring more territory. ये क्यों करना? Because unless you have trade, the people will not be happy. Unless the people are not happy, you cannot be a king. I mean, you can be a king for some time. You can be like, what is that fellow? Genghis Khan.
You can just plunder things and.
You can plunder things and keep plunder forever.
That's like
plunder कर दोगे तो कुछ plunder
that's like the companies more reputed versus less reputed.
Have you seen Sholay, no?
Yeah.
Have you not wondered कि वो एक machine gun करके सबको क्यों मार देंगे? मारेगा तो उसको अनाज कहाँ मिलेगा? You will kill 1, 2, 3, but not the airport themselves.
But I mean, they become used to that. I mean, at the end of the day, they know ये हो ही जाएगा. So they don't try to repay the loan. I mean, every time the bank has to go for this bad debt.
They will always repay the money lenders. कितने लोगों को पिटाई करेंगे? Because they know that the next time they won't get a loan.
But they will get loan from some other bank.
No, she's saying a bank side.
Bank side, yeah.
Not all are. My experience is not. There are a few notable fellows, but you should control them. And as he said, they have to take risk. It's part of it. I would say it's part of it. You cannot predict who will pay, who will not.
Because if you see microfinance, actually they charge a higher interest rate than the banks, but they're more successful.
Yeah, you allow the banks to charge higher interest rate. See, we have mixed in India the social obligations, etc.
No. What I think is that is one part. The other part is also how do you loan rather than to an individual but to a group that reduces your default rate.
They have tried that. It is self-help group. Banks have tried.
That's microfinance basically. Right?
No, banks have tried it long back. We, as a professional, we have done it. Now it has become formalized and all that.
I think another thing what I read a little bit about is that the scale economy is the bank. Bank cannot give such a small loans that because the operational costs are very high in a bank.
Operational costs are high. You think our MBA students will go to a village and stay there? There are some operational difficulties and costs are there. So you finance some, now perhaps banks can finance a microfinance institution. See, the issue is that if you allow businesses a free hand, they are likely to settle in a very efficient manner. Somebody will be hurt, somebody will not. But then you are a bank, then the same problem, no? Bank manager gives loan and runs away because he's an employee. Money lender, he has to get back, that is his wealth.
That's another thing problem I think in the public sector versus private sector bank. In the private sector bank, I think there is some kind of appraisal that if you give a loan somewhere, you will be, if you have done something bad, it will get back to you.
If you do well, there is a positive reinforcement. If you do
In the
badly,
public sector bank, that's not there. The thing is, everybody is moving so fast to another branch and all. The kind of a model has got a much bigger issue, I think, in the public sector bank than the private sector bank.
Yeah.
Because private sector bank will say, oh, you have created, you have to pay for it, one way or the other.
See, if the private sector bank feel that you have done it deliberately or you have benefited from it, you lose the job straight away. Or they may file a case against you. In public sector, you can't lose your job. And therefore, you do whatever you want to. All they have to see is that they are not caught for corruption. In private sector banks, if the results are not there, you lose the job. In private sector, that's the issue. That's the major thing.
And also, if you do well, also there's no incentive.
There's no incentive.
So effectively, nobody will push a right guy. So whosoever is routinely successful, get it. I don't give a kind of a damn about it.
I think we'll end because I have to go and I'm not feeling too okay in that now.